What's up, everybody? Thanks for checking out the second episode of my podcast. Today, I have my friend Brad Marshall, who is also a CrossFit coach. We connected in the Best Hour of Their Day Coaches Development Group, and we got to meet in person not too long ago up in Virginia Beach. I'm excited to talk to Brad because he wears many hats. That includes working as a trainer at CVS and now owning his own affiliate. And so I'm excited to talk about what Brad's got going on, because what's cool about Brad is he's still like in the trenches of, pursuing his passion and making that come to fruition, opposed to listening to somebody who's like, oh yeah, I'm on the other side of that. And now this is my full-time deal. Brad's still in the thick of it. So I'm excited to hear all the things that Brad's got going on. So Brad, kick it off. Tell me what are all the hats that you wear?
Yeah, that could take a minute here. My wife likes to make fun of me and say you have like 5 different jobs at any given point in time, which is true, but most of it is all the stuff I actually enjoy doing, which is why I'm really excited to get on here and chat about our passion and how we find ways to make it happen. And so for me, I'll take you back a little bit to kind of give some context here. I studied the field of sport and performance psychology because I was really fascinated with how people can perform their best in stressful moments, pressure moments. And that allowed me to do a lot of awesome work with athletes in the military. And then it actually led to my current role, which is now in the corporate space, where I get to work with CVS Health and help train their sales folks on some of those same skills of how do we handle stress, how do we build relationships, how do we put ourselves in the present moment and give ourselves an opportunity to be successful. Well, along the way, I found CrossFit. And so that was probably about 6 or 7 years ago. Started to do it as a way for myself to just get healthy and improve there, and took such a liking to it and enjoy getting up in front and working with people that I decided to pursue coaching. And so that was probably about 6 years ago that I began coaching. And then sure enough, like a lot of things, is you get really into coaching and trying to figure out how you can do it better, how you can bring better skill sets, work with people more effectively. So over the years, I've been trying to just get better at being a coach, whether that's joining Best Hour of Their Day Coach Development Group, learning all different types of things from precision nutrition to continually working on mindset stuff and mindfulness, and bringing all these pieces together, where eventually, actually within the last couple months here, took the plunge and decided to open an affiliate, which is called Greater Culture CrossFit. So of all the hats I wear, one, I get to work full time and train folks. I get to be an affiliate owner, and we're currently running out of our garage. I also get the chance to work with some other really cool companies and partners. One of them is O2X Human Performance, where we do mindset training as well as nutrition and movement for a lot of first responder and law enforcement agencies. I've been fortunate enough to do some mindfulness training with some research projects at the University of Miami. So there's a lot of things that keep me very busy, and a lot of it is centered around how do we help people to live happier, healthier lives through the tools of mindset, movement, nutrition, recovery. So if it has anything to do with that world, I'm pretty excited to dive into it and figure out ways to help people. So I've always been somebody who says yes to opportunities, which, always leads to sort of the next thing. And it's worked out well so far. It keeps me busy, keeps the schedule full, but it also feels very fulfilling as well. So those are a number of the hats I wear, and just a little context and background of where I'm currently at.
That's really cool. And I like that with all the, one, I like that you wrapped it up together where it's like, hey, I want to help people be happier and healthier and, more fulfilled. And, with that, there's like really 3 big areas that it seems like you help people with. It's like, I help them with their fitness, I help them with their occupation, or I help them with their mindset. And a lot of times when people are just in the beginnings of self-improvement or personal development, they see a lot of these things as mutually exclusive. Like, oh, either I'm going to go to the gym, or I'm going to read this book, or I'm going to go to the seminar, or I'm going to get a promotion, or whatever it is. And, you know, with you're in my position, we're in a spot where we realize like, oh man, like it's not mutually exclusive, and it's not exclusive at all. Like it's all the same thing. And we can attack, it's like we're attacking the same thing from different angles. So can you speak into that for when you're helping somebody out, whether it's from, fitness or occupation or like mindset or anything? How do you help them develop the whole person?
Yeah, it's something that I've noticed a lot of early on in my career, and then over the years I've come to have maybe a different understanding of, but people get really deep in one specific subject matter. So it's like, I only work on mindset, or I'm only your strength and conditioning coach, or I'm only your nutritionist. And it can feel overwhelming to be like, I got to go work with like 4 or 5 different people to try and get the answers for some of the problems that I'm trying to solve. And I think when you're at the higher end of the performance spectrum, it is good to find a very specialized person to help you. I think, as you probably can attest to, when we're working with people who are like, you know what, I just want to feel good, and I want to make it through my day, and I want to play with my kids, and I want to go on that hike that somebody asked me to go on. You don't need all this information and data and these specialists. You can have somebody who's more of a generalist who can help you with that. And so over the years, I would say my specialty was mindset, but I realized that there's so many other ways we can help people improve, which is why CrossFit is so cool, because while on the surface it's this movement methodology, when you actually dive into what it's all about, nutrition is the base of the pyramid. And then we start layering in movement. And then through that process, our mindset changes. And you realize all these pieces really play off of each other. You can't just pick one and say, that's all I'm going to focus on or work on. They all work together, because our lives are kind of this, for lack of a better term, a jumbled mess of like everything's going on all at the same time. So I think for me, over the years, I've tried to become more of a generalist, and I want to have a deep enough understanding in all of these different areas so that I can really help people and figure out, oh, right now it sounds like movement would be super helpful, or let's do some work over here on your mindset, or nutritionally, what does that look like? And then we just build a lifestyle that it's like, you don't even have to really think about it anymore. I don't have to make these tough decisions on how I want to be or what I'm going to do throughout my day. It just unfolds naturally because I've built this lifestyle that brings all these pieces together. So I think that's the trick, is trying to find ways to piece it all together rather than silo it out. And that's how most folks will find a lot of benefit to it.
Yeah, that's really cool. I mean, I have found from my own experience and through helping, my members, is a lot of people, you hear a lot, especially in like the guru personal development space, like find your purpose. What's your purpose? And so often people are so overwhelmed with the day to day that they don't have the mental or spiritual bandwidth to be able to even contemplate that in a capacity that's meaningful. And just I find the beginning with just like habit change can be huge. As simple as, what's your morning routine? Or even as simple as like, I don't have a whole morning routine, but I make my bed. Like I make my bed and then I start my day. And implementing things like that, and implementing planning out your fitness throughout the week, and having these staples in your schedule, like, what are my eating habits? And when you start to establish that, I find that now you have more mental bandwidth to think about things that are more meaningful, because you're no longer in this high stress response of, what am I going to do when I wake up? What am I going to eat for lunch? Oh, shoot, I forgot. I got to go pick up my kids. I know I'm supposed to be getting workouts in, but I don't know when I'm going to have time for it. And it's just like this constant frantic reactionary state to where we're so far removed from being able to make those big shifts to change the direction of the shift, because you're just so prioritized with now. And so I find like the first thing, like you said, can be huge, of like, let's start working out 3 days a week. Let's start making your bed. Let's start adding vegetables to your meals. And even though that may seem so unrelated to changing the direction of your life, it's the first thing to give you that mental space that you need. Because then once you've freed up that mental space, now I can think about like, oh, well, what do I like to do? And you can start building more awareness of what you're doing. And now that I have these habits, I can notice, I can detach of like, oh, well, why do I eat this every day? Or why do I hang out with this person all the time when they make me feel like garbage? And then all of a sudden being aware of your mindset it's like, okay, now I can figure out where I want to go. Is that something you've noticed or I mean, does that resonate with you?
Yeah, I totally agree. And it's funny because when you meet people, where they are, it's like, what's the low hanging fruit that we might be able to tweak or just adjust, and maybe they start to feel a little bit better. And then you just start to layer things on one step at a time. And I think what's interesting is, with New Year's just being here and people get really excited to make big changes. They see something or they've experienced something where like, I'm ready to make the change. And they want to do 75 hard, whole 30, big resolution and changes. And while some people are very much like, hey, I'm all in and I can do that, I think most of us are much better off with like, what's just the littlest thing I can do that is like a 90+% certainty it's going to get done. And let's start there. And let's give that some time and see what happens. And then maybe we add one more thing. Oh, I've gotten in the habit of making my bed every day, or I've gotten in the habit of walking for 5 minutes. Okay, that sounds great. It's now part of your routine. You don't even have to think about it. It's part of almost who you are. Okay, well, let's see if we can find that next small thing. And if we start to do that or take that approach, I think that's much more manageable for people. It allows us to not have these big swings of like, I'm in it, I'm off the train, I'm back on, I'm off. And it's like, I don't know why we have to keep getting on and off the train or the wagon or whatever it is. Like, we can live our life in such a way that it aligns with who we want to be and some of the principles we establish for ourselves. So I think that's always really important, is start super small, make sure there's a really high certainty that they're going to accomplish the task and stay consistent with it. And then we can start to build from there.
Yeah, it's that minimum effective dose.
Mm-hmm.
And what I love about that is like, that's my favorite, is like, well, what's the smallest thing you could do today that would make a difference? And it's like, I literally mean the smallest. And it's like, well, I can drink more water. Great. Let's do that. And that's what I do with my members for their New Year's goals is, what's the smallest thing? And once they get the one smallest thing, now it's the next thing and this next thing. But what I also about the smallest thing is that also leaves more room for variability. Like, you might do that small thing and realize, oh, I need to change direction. Or you might do that small thing and you're like, man, I don't want this at all. I was like, great. Like, you had this like minimum investment that is like no harm, no foul. We can pivot. But if you're like, nope, I'm doing 75 hard no matter what, and you're like 30 days in and you're like freaking out and it's like, this is a way bigger investment than just drinking some more water.
Yeah. And what's interesting about that too is I think when we have high expectations, it can be effective for certain areas of our lives. But if we have such a high expectation and we're not meeting it as consistently as we might like to, it can be really easy to beat ourselves up and feel like we're a failure, or feel like we're not as good as the person I see on, social media, or this person I read about in a magazine, or, I'm not jumping in an ice bath every single day. Like, I must not be operating very efficiently as a human. And you start to, pull back some of those layers, and you're like, people have been functioning and figuring things out for a long, long time, that just because you're not doing whatever the, latest health craze is, doesn't mean you're not functioning, doesn't mean you're not thriving in your life. So giving people some grace with that, to me, is helpful, where it's like, it doesn't have to be this big, huge commitment. It can be the smallest thing, and then whatever's best for you. Like, don't worry about what everyone else is doing, because if you can just focus on yourself, I think that's a huge, huge win for people as well.
That's cool. What made you get into, let's call it personal development? What made you get into that? And what do you like about all of these things that you do that help people?
Yeah, it's funny, in the field of sport and performance psychology is sort of a running joke that we get into the field because most of us had some sort of an athletic career that didn't pan out and we wanted to figure it out. So rather than just paying a psychologist to work with us one-on-one, we're like, well, let's go study the material ourselves and figure it out. So I was an athlete, played football and baseball, and I think I did as well as I could at the Division III level, but I was always really fascinated with the mind and just how do people operate in stressful situations. Loved sports growing up, loved watching sports, loved watching people in those big games and those big moments. And so that really led me to get excited about learning more of how does the mind work? How does it impact the way we show up and the way we perform? So went and got a degree in psychology and sports psychology. And that led to, I would say, the career field that I was in for the first sort of half of my career, working with athletes and military. And then you keep working on the mindset with people. And then even in my own life, I was like, you know what? I feel like I talk about the stuff, I do the stuff, but I actually don't think I'm as healthy as maybe I could be or I'd like to be. Didn't work out nearly as much as I might like to. Didn't eat really healthy. So I think that's when I found CrossFit. I realized, there's a whole other side of health and personal development that is important. Like even if you're meditating every single day, but you're not eating right or moving right, it's only going to take you so far. And so I think that really opened my eyes to, okay, if we start to bring more of these pieces, movement, mindset, recovery, how we eat into the fold, we can help a lot more people feel better. And as much as I loved helping people operate at a really high level, and sometimes I get a chance to do that still, I think it's just as cool to see somebody say, I went through a whole day and I had enough energy and I had enough excitement and I went to bed feeling like really accomplished. And you're like, that's awesome, because that's, to me, what I get really excited about. So that's why I started to really dive into movement and nutrition, to just have a good enough understanding that I could help people and try and piece and put all these things together. So that's how I would say I got into the idea of personal development and growth. And then over the years, just continually trying to figure out ways to help people has been something that I've enjoyed doing. I actually really love learning, especially when it's, a field that I'm really passionate about. So learning from different people and how they think about these concepts, it's been fun because it sort of challenges you to figure out, okay, well, what are my views on it? How do I make sense of it? And then how do I take that to help people? Because people learn all different ways. People respond to different types of coaching. And so for me, it's just figuring out, like, what does that message sound like for me and how can I get that to people? And if it resonates with them, great. I'd love to help them. And if it doesn't, then I want to point you in the direction of someone who can help you. Because I think, like we said at the beginning, to me, it comes back to this idea that the ability to thrive, the ability to be fulfilled isn't just for a select few. I think everybody has access to it.
Yeah, that's super cool. I totally agree. And you don't have to nerd out on it like we do to be happier and fulfilled. You don't have to figure out how to help everybody else do it. It sounds simple, and it's not as easy as it is simple, but it's you just got to figure out the things that fill your cup. Yep. And it's what fills your emotional energy, your spiritual energy, your physical energy, what fills you up. And it's if you can figure that out, you're going to be awesome. It's no matter what you do. When you discovered CrossFit and you feel, and what you had described as there's a physicality missing with what you were doing, was there, when you started CrossFit, did you find that there was a mindset impact by adding physicality that you hadn't considered?
Yeah, I think one of the things that drew me to CrossFit, and I've heard it from a number of people as well, is as an athlete, you worked out so that you could ideally be better in your sport. And I usually viewed working out through that lens primarily of I'm going to the gym because I want to be a better player in whatever the sport was. I didn't process or probably realize that working out had so many other benefits for me other than just what you could do on the field. And I worked out a little bit even after finishing my sport and went to the gym and did different weightlifting programs, 3x10s, 3x12s of all these things. And I just wasn't as fulfilled with that. Did different classes to get in shape for like a wedding and things like that. And it was all right. I think CrossFit for me was the first time where I was like, oh, like this feels like something I'm enjoying. It feels kind of like being an athlete again, which I think I appreciated. And then I think as I started to notice the physical changes, the mental side, there was a lot of connections there of like, man, you talk about this idea of like, how do you handle yourself in stressful moments? How do you stay calm and collected? How do you focus and stay fully engaged with whatever the task is that you're doing? And it was really coming through with the workouts and then continuing on with that. So there certainly was this connection between the physical and the mental. And then some of those changes of like, okay, if you have this belief or this thought of like, hey, I can do hard things or I can overcome challenge. Well, if you're not putting yourself in challenging situations, it's hard to back that belief up. And so CrossFit was one of those ways where you're like, okay, like I am proving to myself time and time again, I can do challenging things. I can build some confidence. So all of the concepts that I was, working on and training people with, it very naturally flowed that CrossFit gave examples, but also it gave me some of that personal experience of connecting the mentality with the physicality. So I think that's a really insightful question of like how these things can connect and we don't even realize it till like you're in it and coming out the other side of it almost.
Yeah, it's a really cool place to get to with CrossFit after because there's a barrier to entry where you got to learn the movement, you learn the lingo, everything's new, and there becomes a point where now you're familiar with it and you're butting up against your limits. Because when everybody starts, there's like huge wins. I'm PRing this, I've done things I've never done before, and that's amazing. And that's, that I'm totally up for that. But there is a point where people start to plateau because they've now gotten accustomed to it and they start butting up against limits. And the CrossFit gym is such a cool place that I am firm in my belief that there's no other place where you get to, learn new skills, face adversity, and practice failing in a controlled and safe environment. And as goofy as it is for us to do that with movements, and in some, it is kind of goofy. It's like, hey, we're going to practice getting upside down. We're going to practice getting this rope to pass under your feet twice. Like, it's play. And those things, compared to some of the other movements that we do, have a limited transferability physically out in life. But when you practice those things and you work on something for a long period of time, you work through the frustration, you learn the new skill, you fail, and then you accomplish it. That grit that you developed is what's going to transfer into you taking that same energy and putting it into your career or your family or whatever, or your community or whatever you're wanting to get better at. And it's not, it's not actually about the double under or getting, walking on your hands. It's about what did we develop psychologically that we wouldn't have been able to do in a controlled environment, anywhere else.
Yeah. And it's funny because one of my first jobs out of school was working with college athletics. And that was one of the biggest things that we would work with them on is they were getting ready to graduate and they'd say, having a degree, I played a sport, but like, I don't have any skills. Like, and we'd have to sit there and say like, you have way more skills than you have any idea about. Like, you've learned how to work with a team. You've learned how to overcome challenge. You've probably developed some leadership qualities by being a part of this team. So it's all these skills you're developing that you maybe don't realize it. And you might just sometimes need somebody to say like, hey, I saw you do this over here. Look at how that can transfer to this other area of your life. And then sometimes those light bulbs go off of like, oh yeah, like going 21, 15, 9 in a workout, maybe that gives me just a little bit more confidence. Go have a tough conversation with somebody or go to my boss and say, hey, I think I deserve, a raise or a promotion. And you're like, you wouldn't think those two things connect, but our brain is really funny in that putting ourselves in tough situations and you develop the skills and the capacity to overcome that. you can transfer that to other areas of your life, even if you don't see that connection always.
I just had a member recently, actually it was last year. She lost both her parents within a 12-month period. Yeah. And she had told us that if it were not for the community was a huge factor. And then just as big of a factor was the mental grit she developed by doing CrossFit. She said, I don't know how I would have gotten through that with my parents, because I learned how to endure psychologically and push through and celebrate wins, and that is what, and then leaning on her friends, the friendships that she built, because when you do that with other people, now you built a connection that's unparalleled again. And so to be able to have those two things develop her, socially and psychologically, to be able to endure something that wasn't physical at all, speaks to the impact that CrossFit has on people's mindset.
Yeah, it's like we're constantly, getting ready for the unknown and the unknowable. I mean, that's one of the big sort of core tenets of CrossFit that couldn't be any more true. Of like, you might not know what the workout's going to be, you might not know how it's going to go, but you have the belief and you develop the confidence that whatever it is, you'll figure it out. And even just having that skill set and that capacity is huge, especially when you start developing or going through real things like losing your parents or moving or losing a job or whatever it is. Those are real things that are really hard to deal with and handle. And even if we get the chance on a smaller scale to work through it, it gives us a better chance of getting through it when the big stuff comes.
Yeah. And speaking of big stuff and figuring things out, what made you make the big move of leaving the gym where you were coaching and figure out how to launch your affiliate? And I don't think we've mentioned it yet, but your affiliate is out of your garage, correct?
Yeah. So we're currently out of the garage. So I would say one of the things that led me to starting an affiliate was this idea of always learning and growing and challenging myself. And I'm very fortunate that the affiliate that I started at was the only affiliate I had ever known. It was my first CrossFit gym, became the gym where I coached at, increased responsibility over the years there. So very grateful for all the opportunities that were provided to me there. And there came a point in time for me where I started to have some ideas around the ways that I wanted to bring all the pieces that I've learned and experienced over the years, mindset, nutrition, movement, and try and do it in a way in which it was under sort of the brand and the style and the imagination that I have. And so that's actually where the name of the brand came from, Greater Culture, as I was thinking about what are all the things that are really meaningful to me. And the first one was this idea of community and being surrounded by really great people who are all working to get better or improve their life, or just when you're surrounded by good people, magic happens. So that's why this idea of culture came about. Was culture is just people who have a shared set of values or beliefs. And then this idea of like, okay, well, what are the words that are meaningful for me in terms of people wanting to just improve? And greater came up, of just like, we're just trying to get a little bit greater each and every day. So that's why the brand got established of Greater Culture, of just, it's a shared set of people who want to improve their lives a little bit. And then for me, CrossFit is the methodology that I've come to love and try and learn as much as I can about every day. So I definitely wanted to, bring that to life. And so Greater Culture CrossFit was born. And so, yeah, we've got a number of members working out of our garage right now, and we're excited to build the brand, build the community, and figure out ways we can help impact people's lives. And over time, we've got some, big plans for how we want to get into some of the lifestyle coaching stuff virtually, how we want to do seminars and retreats and all these good things. So it was really an opportunity to create something that felt like was in line with all the ideas and the ways in which we want to help people. So I'd say that's how it came to life. And so we've been at it for just over a month now, which has been really fun. The garage got a whole makeover. So it looks and feels like a legit CrossFit affiliate in there. We're going through, January and now into February. So we're in North Carolina. It's not terribly cold. We're not negative temperatures like the North, but our members have demonstrated some grit working through some chilly workouts lately. So it's been a lot of fun and a whole new set of challenges and things that excite me to work on.
I think it's really cool that you're doing that. One, it sounds very OG. Like you hear about like CrossFit gyms that started out of garage or storage units, and there's this this vibe out there that's no longer possible. That these existing gyms are too nice and too big that people aren't going to want to join your garage, and you're a cool example that like, no, this can still be a thing. Like you can still start super low barrier to entry, and be able to expand as you grow. And also I think it's cool that you are doing that while also continuing to work your full-time job. Because a lot of people that, and I myself included, when people decide that this is what they want to do, they want to open a business, they want to be an entrepreneur, the advice is almost always do not quit your job, grow slow, and then as you expand, like then you can entertain pulling away. And a lot of, and when I say myself included, is like, that's totally not what I did. Like I was like, unpull the plug, let's go, let's figure it out. And, it was a tornado doing that. And I'm confident that's what I needed to do to make it work. And I respect that there's other people that need to do that. However, the intelligent choice is to, if it works for you, follow the process that you're following. And a lot of people have success both ways, but
yeah. And, I've always been somebody who have been fortunate to have a job. So there's, steady income, benefits that can take care of my wife and I here. And so that's always been home base. And I'm fortunate enough that with my role and with the way we've structured the gym and have another coach on board, that we can provide a schedule right now that accommodates our members here. So in the morning, at lunchtime, and then in the evening. And, as we grow, I know there's going to be challenges that come with that. And I've got plans and aspirations of making this into a career. And that's one of the reasons why, working with and chatting with other folks in the space who are doing it is really helpful. And I love collaborating and learning from others because it is a scary endeavor where the idea of leaving something that is more sure with a, established salary and benefits and things like that feels much more safe and secure versus the unknown of like, hey, membership, how that fluctuates, how many people are working you with for coaching, and rent just goes up or whatever else happens. So there's a lot of uncertainty with that side, but there's also a lot of upside with the way you can impact people's lives and some of the joy and success you can feel there. So I'm excited for what's to come, but also know that there's a lot of learning that's going to happen along the way.
Do you, and you don't have to go too specific, but do you have a game plan on your like when you're going to begin to transition away from it? Because it sounds like you said you're going to eventually transition away from your job into full-time at the gym. Do you have like markers in your mind where it's like, hey, right around this many members, we're going to do this, right around this many members, we're going to do that?
Yeah. When I was establishing the brand and getting everything set up, has sort of a 5-year projection plan. And part of that is we're going to have to find a physical space at some point in time because the garage can only hold so many people. So that's sort of an ongoing process. And where we're currently at, not a ton of commercial space available, or at least the stuff that we'd like to or would feel good about. So that's where we're being patient, taking our time there. Once we find something like that and we can grow the membership base and get the revenue to a certain level that I feel like it's pretty comparable to where I'm at now, that would make me feel a lot better about transitioning. And I've also got, I really want to take care of coaches and other folks who come on board, which is why we have this idea of having multiple, streams of revenue, if you will, where like we've got the physical space, which is changing people's lives in person. We're going to work ourselves to doing some online lifestyle coaching to provide more opportunities to impact people's lives outside of just the area where we live. And then eventually, we want to work our way into providing different seminars and retreats and things like that. So this is all part of this 5-year plan that it starts small with just putting a really good product out there and getting things off the ground. And then eventually finding a space and just continually getting people on board with our values, our mission, what we're trying to accomplish, and seeing if it's a good fit for them. So as much as I'd love for there to be like a specific, like within 1 year or 2 years, it's hard to see that until we figure out, okay, we've got a space. Now we can really grow at a faster rate than what we're currently at. So we're taking things one day at a time and continue looking and working with other people. But we're excited for what the journey looks like, whether it's, 6 months in the garage till we find something, or whether it's, longer. We've talked to some folks who've experienced that, and it worked out for them. So we know it can work out for us too.
That's cool. And I like that resonates, that echoes what we talked about in the very beginning about minimum effective dose. And it's like, what's the smallest thing that I can do to get this off the ground when I have this like grandiose idea and all these projects that I want to launch in this business? Like, what can I do right now? It's like, well, I can start out in my garage. I can invite people to come work out in my cold garage with me and, teach them CrossFit and deliver a really cool class. And then we can find a building, and then we can look at some of these other projects. And just really, it's cool hearing you put all of that energy into that one simple area of getting people in your door and delivering CrossFit to them, and then having that vision.
Yeah. And it's funny too, because when you want to open a gym, it's low barrier to entry, but there's certainly a commitment where it's like, when you go through the process of signing up for an affiliate, and you got to pay insurance and you got to pay an affiliate fee. So there's certainly an investment up front of like, okay, you're really doing this. And then, for us, like remodeling our garage basically, or just like slowly changing the layout and getting equipment, you're like, okay, we're legitimately doing this. And I already know, when the time comes for a bigger space, it's like, okay, we are signing on for this. Like, there's a commitment here. So we're making those commitments all along the way. Which is good because it holds you accountable as well. And then when you get people who are willing to pay for your services, you're like, well, now we really want to do a good job and make sure that we're providing some really high value and providing a great experience for them.
That's really cool. How, what's been the reception like of the people as they've joined your gym this first month?
Yeah, so we've got a number of folks who have known me for a while, which is always helpful to have that as a base of people who've worked with me or known me for a while. And as they've come over and worked, they've been very appreciative of, the class structure and what we're doing. We've been very fortunate that a lot of people reach out and offer support. We've had folks, come and drop in, and they're not necessarily ready for like an unlimited full-time membership, but they're like, I'm going to come as often as I can and support. So there's been a lot of support from folks that we've known in the area we've worked with in the past. So now the next challenge for us is, how do we start to take the message and what we're delivering and spread that to people who don't know us or aren't aware of what we're doing or what we're up to. So that's sort of the next challenge that we're ready to tackle is, okay, we've got things up and running. We feel pretty good about some of our systems and processes. Now let's start to get people involved who maybe don't know us or, aren't aware that we exist in a garage in Fuquay Varina, North Carolina.
Yeah, for sure. And that's a challenge too. I mean, when you ask any affiliate owner, even affiliates that have been open 10 years, like what's their biggest challenge? It's like letting people know that we exist. And, and, I get people asking me all the time, wanting to sell me marketing this or ads that. And they're like, where do all your leads come from? I'm like, they're either referrals or Google. And that's pretty much it. And so it's just knowing like, okay, well, how do I dial up my SEO? And then how do I provide useful and meaningful opportunities for my members to invite their friends? And that's been the biggest biggest thing that's worked for me.
Yeah, and that's one of the things is we've gotten things up and off the ground, like, launching the social media has been cool of like, hey, let's try and find ways to share our message, show what we're doing. Similarly, like starting to put out some more audio through podcasts and things like that. The website's very close to being finished. Like I've seen some drafts that are very close to being finished. So there's like all this excitement around like, hey, what are just all the ways people can interact with us or just know at least we're here. So that's been really fun too, to try and figure out like, how do you actually communicate to everybody what you're doing, what that looks like, what it sounds like. Because that's, at least in my mind, the whole idea of like branding and marketing. Marketing is just like everything you do that people are aware of or find out about you. So that has been fun too. And like you said, it's only been a month or so. So we're in our infancy still, which is we're excited about, but it's a fun challenge that we're taking on each day.
That's really cool. And that's a very under acknowledged struggle with being an entrepreneur, is how do I communicate our vibe and our culture and what we do to people who have no idea, what we are. And that includes people that know what CrossFit is, still don't know our vibe, don't know our culture, don't know what we do. And how do I communicate that clearly? Because there's so many options out there. And I've been on the receiving end of that frustration when I have family or friends or members who move and I'm trying to help them find a gym. And you see these websites and you're just like, this is garbage. This is a bad website. I don't see class times. Your about me is like telling me how much you like Fran. And I'm like, I don't know enough to be able to refer somebody here. So I tell them, like, go check it out, I guess. And so then I take that to my own business. Like, okay, how do I communicate on my website enough that intrigues somebody to take a step, and then we can have a conversation and I can elaborate. And, for me with my gym, what I'm constantly communicating to people is we are not the gym to help you simply be a better exerciser. We're the gym to help you be a better whole human. And so I care most that the things that we do in the gym transfer outside of your life and help you move better, live happier. And so that's going to be the approach that we take in the gym. And so that means we're going to do things like teach you how to do the movements more than you've ever been taught before. We're going to make sure that you're moving, safely and have solid technique before we add speed and load. We're going to offer things like nutrition coaching and mindset to make sure that, we are heading in the direction of your goals, and that you have the ability to leave the gym and go do whatever you want to do with your family and be present with your family, whether that's, playing with your kids, going on a hike, going to the beach. I want to make sure that the gym enhances your life and you're not just living to work out.
Yeah. It's funny. I've heard, a number of people talk about that of like, are we fitnessing just to be better fitnessers or just better exercisers? Or are we fitnessing for everything that life has in store for us outside of that 1 hour? And whatever people's goals or intentions are, great. If you want to move faster or lift heavier loads in the sport of fitness, great. I've been there. I've enjoyed that part of my life. If you want to, go on that hike or go on that ski trip with the group, great. Let's get you to there. So I love the idea of like figuring out what people actually want, of like, hey, what do you want to get out of this? And like, does that align with what I can help you with? If it doesn't, I will point you in the right direction to make sure you get the help that you need. If it does align with what I believe I can help you with or we can help you with, then great. Let's see if it works. Because I think that's part of it is people don't always have a sense of like direction or goals, or of like, I think I want to get better at this. I know I want to feel better, but I don't even know what that looks like or what that can mean. And I think that's our role as coaches, is to try and figure out how do we get a little bit more clarity for them and figure out what that looks like and help guide them along the path.
Yeah. And communicating what it is you offer, I find helps people get clear on, oh, this sounds like something I'd be interested, or, no, this doesn't sound like what I want, because they had no idea. I get people that come into my gym. They typically fall into like one of three camps. One camp is, I really love CrossFit. I want to do competitions. and in their own words, they say, I want to smash my face in the floor. I'm like, cool. I'm glad you like CrossFit and you want to get after it, but this sounds like this isn't going to be the gym for you. Because instead of encouraging you to, chicken wing your way up on a pull-up bar for a muscle up, like I'm going to help you develop the technique, and I'm going to ask you to slow down and move better so that in a year, you don't just have one chicken wing muscle up, but I've got you doing 5 unbroken and they look clean. But that takes the challenges the ego. And then I get other people who come in that have never done CrossFit. They're like, I don't know what I want. I just know what I'm doing isn't working and I want to feel better. And so when I communicate my message to them, oftentimes it's either, oh man, I didn't realize that's what I wanted, but now that you say that, that's what I want. And I also have other people that realize like, man, that sounds really big. I'm not ready for that. And then the third camp is people who, have been doing CrossFit and they're either burned out or they got injured or they're tired of being in a class that, like you said, is helping them be a better exerciser, just to better exercise. And they're ready to feel good. And that's the, those are the people that we help out, are the people that are like, man, whatever I'm doing isn't working and I'm ready to feel good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think the more clear you can be with not only your mission, what your values are, and how you go about delivering that, it's going to make it easier to help clients figure out if you're the right fit, but also to help you figure out who are the people that I do want to impact, I want to help. Because I think it's easy to say, I want to help everybody. And while I think we can help everybody, I do think there's probably more specific types of people that are going to resonate and we're going to work really well together.
Yeah, totally. I want to back things up a little bit with you starting your gym. So you were coaching at a different gym and then left that gym to coach your affiliate. And in our coaches development group, we hear that story often. And we also hear the story of, I'm nervous to leave my gym. I love my gym. I love my community, but I feel, maybe they feel the owner isn't aligned with them. The other coaches aren't aligned with them. And they're, like you had described, they're limited in their ability to make the impact that they want to make. But the idea of doing something other than what I'm used to sounds scary. So can you speak into that?
Yeah, I think change for anybody, myself included, is really hard. And even just the idea of thinking about it, changing jobs, moving to a new city, my wife and I just got a dog this year. So like changing our lives about like bringing something new into our environment is always scary and intimidating. And it's easy, but also feels safe to stay where you are. If it's working, you don't have to do anything different. And I'll say that, where I was not the type of situation that, needed to leave or anything like that, which probably made it even harder. Just knowing that I had given a lot of time, energy, and effort to that space and really connected and integrated into the community. And there wasn't anything that was glaringly wrong that was like, oh, we're going to leave, on bad terms or anything like that. It was really this, maybe it's part of who I am, of just wanting to push or challenge myself. And having been there and been, coach, head coach, took on membership services, planned events, did all these things. And I got to that point where I was like, you know what, like I enjoy doing all of these things. I wonder what it would look like if I did them for a space that, I owned. And so that's where I think the process started for me of like really thinking through, okay, what is that going to look like? Can you do it with your full-time job? What is this going to look like to leave this community that like you've been really integrated in? Like, where are you going to go? Because I mean, where we live is some suburbs of Raleigh and there's a variety of gyms within a couple miles of each other. So you're kind of like, is the market saturated? Do we need another CrossFit gym? And so all those questions really start to swirl around of like, is this the right choice? Or are you just being, restless or, just looking for the next thing? And after a lot of soul searching and whatnot, you kind of came to that point of like, you know what, like, why not? Why not try it out and see what happens? There's plenty of other gyms. So why not test it out and see if you can take on all of the challenges and the issues and navigate them, be an entrepreneur. And so for me, that's really what it came down to. Was I liked what I was doing. I learned everything I know about coaching and things like that from that space. Being involved with mentors and other coaches give you the confidence that you can do it on your own. So that certainly helped as well. And really came to that point of why not? And I've always been somebody who says yes to a lot of challenges or yes to a lot of opportunities. And I said, I don't think I can say no to myself. I'd rather test it out and see, and why not go for it? So that was kind of the process for me. And it was hard. Certainly a sad departure from a group that I've known for 5 or 6 years. And just kind of reminding myself that, focusing on that was great, and a lot of good memories, everything I learned, great experiences. And there's this excitement around what's to come. And so for me, that was some of the biggest factors, was wanting to take a chance and bet on myself, and then take everything I've learned and see if we can apply it in a way that's meaningful and helps other people.
At what point did you, in your soul searching, did you and your wife come to the conclusion that this was the step? Or what did the soul searching look like to make that happen?
Yeah, I think over this last year, like, the thought bubbles in your head. And I think a lot of CrossFit coaches get this, where you get the itch, you start CrossFit, then maybe you start coaching. Then the next itch in the progression is like, could I do this? Could I like actually run an affiliate? And I would say the thought had been bubbling in my head for probably a couple years, and never took action on it, just because you're like, things are good. I've got a full-time job. I enjoy the coaching aspect. Like, I get to do all the things I love. Like, things are good. And then I would say over the last year, so 2022, there was just more and more conversations I had talking with other people around like how fulfilled and how happy they were about being an owner or making that jump and making that transition. So as we got into the back half of the year, and really just kind of started to look at it, from a financial perspective and time commitment, and like, is this something like we want to do and go down this road? There just came a point in time where in the fall where we were like, you know what, like, I think so. Like, I do want to do this. The pandemic had allowed us to build out our garage gym for us over that time frame. So we already had some equipment. It was, kind of getting more and more equipment. And, we kind of asked, friends and close people of like, hey, if we did something, like, what do you think? Like, do you think we would be good at it? Do you think we could attract people? Do you think we could actually help people? And so getting some confidence from, close friends that they were like, yeah, I think you could do this. That certainly helped. So by the end of the fall is when we really made the decision of like, hey, at the end of November, I'm going to part ways with the gym that I was at. And then over the course of December, we started training people out of the garage. And that's when we applied for our affiliate, and we got all that, got the affiliate, we got all of the information squared away. And so we got the branding and the logo and everything else. We're like, it's real. So by December, we were starting to, work with people. And then by January 1st, we were like, hey, we are full go operational. Here's our monthly rates. Here's our class times. So that's where we've been. So it was probably years in the making, and then got really serious last year. And then in the fall was like, hey, I think we really want to do this.
Very cool. That's cool. And yeah, I totally get that. And there's something to be said about, we've talked a lot about like mindset and like introspective and working on you. And some of the things that you touched on is there's also a factor of having the people around you affect you positively. And, what I've heard in that, I heard you talk about social proof. Like, I'm in this, coaches group where I've seen other people do this, and that gives me the social proof that it's a reality. And then I reached out to my support system to gauge both the desire and the feedback on whether I would have the support to do this, was essentially what it is. Am I crazy, or is this something that, my counsel thinks is doable? And where I think a lot of personal development stuff misses the mark is you hear a lot about, like, don't let other people affect what you're going to do, do things just for you. And that's true if you're surrounded by people that are, crabs in a bucket. The analogy, when you try to pull crabs out of a bucket, the other crabs will try to pull that other crab down. If you're a crab in a bucket and you're trying to get out of the bucket, yeah, totally, you're gonna have to let those people go. But if you've surrounded yourself with a support system and you have a council, I have a sort of unofficial council of people that I refer to when I'm going to make big life decisions and ask, like, hey, what do you think? And sometimes I always listen to what they have to say. And sometimes I'm like, okay, there's a lot of sense in that, I might pivot. And sometimes I hear them and I'm like, I'm doing it anyway.
I 100% agree with that. And it's funny because I just turned 34 this year, and I was joking with a friend who's probably one of those like mentor colleagues. Like, the idea of saying you've been doing something for a decade is a little intimidating and scary. It like gives some credibility to what you're doing, but you're like, wow, I've been like working or operating in this space for a decade. And you get to a point where you have probably a higher level of trust in yourself of like, I have, like you said, the social proof is there. Friends have told me things. I've got to have a confidence in my own skill set and my abilities to navigate this. It's not a rash decision. Funny enough, like one of my favorite shows on TV is this show called Restaurant Impossible, where this guy, Robert Irvine, goes into these failing restaurants and tries to help make them over and do well. But it's always funny to me that most of those owners, they'll be like, oh, like, did you work in a restaurant, or did you ever like have this before? They're like, no, we just woke up one day and said we wanted to own a restaurant. We bought it, and that's where we are. And so it's not one of those situations where like I started CrossFit and 6 months later I was like, I'm buying an affiliate.
And you actually hear that a lot.
Like, you do.
I've met a lot of gym owners that are like, hey, how'd you end up with the gym? And they're like, well, the old owners wanted to close it down and I wanted to keep my community, so I bought the gym. Like, I don't know that was a good enough reason or decision to make that happen.
I hope you're working with Affiliate U at that point in time to help you navigate that. But so I think that's part of it, is like there was a lot of years of experience and learning and growing that led to it. So yeah, I think there's always uncertainty and a risk level when you make a change, and I'm aware of that. And at the same time, I'm typically someone who's pretty thoughtful and analytical before making big decisions. So really like mapping it out and having a plan and establishing all the things I thought were important before jumping in, so that hopefully, our systems, our processes, all the things we've established are going to carry us through, especially as we continue to grow. And that would be the main goal.
That's cool, dude. Well, that feels like a good spot to end. So with that, first, thanks for doing this with me. I really appreciate it. This was really fun. If people connected with what you had to say and resonated with you, where can they reach out to you or find you or find out about your gym?
Yeah, so our gym, Greater Culture CrossFit, we are on social media. So on Instagram at greater_culture, you'll see it's this teal green GC logo. So that's where you can see what's going on with the gym and some of the other content we're producing over there. My own personal account, MarshallMan39. Right now it's kind of a lot of workout videos and things like that, just things that are on my mind. Those are two spots where you can connect with us. But yeah, I love being on here. Love chatting about these things. Always appreciative of the time we get to spend together, Christian.
Yeah, thanks, Brad. I appreciate it. We always have whenever we get to connect, we always have some really, really good conversations. Thanks, dude.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for checking out this episode. If you liked it, please like it if you checked it out on YouTube. If you're on Spotify, leave me a review. That'll be super helpful. And then if you dug this episode, connect with me on Instagram. If we aren't already, send me a DM. Let me know what you liked about the episode. Let me know what you would have liked to see that you didn't see. I'm going to keep interviewing people that are pursuing their passion to inspire you to pursue yours. And if you're somebody that is feeling stuck and you are making decisions that are not in line with where you want to go in life, and you want to turn your life around and pursue your passion and pave your own path, then ask me about my mindset coaching. I'm doing one-on-one coaching, specifically geared towards men that want to live happier, more fulfilled lives, that we can lead families and be the example that you can carve your own journey. So if that sounds like you, connect with me either on Instagram, or you can click the link that I'll have in the show notes to book a discovery call. And I will see you next time.